Honorable Deputy Speaker, the Honorable Acting Prime Minister and Cabinet colleagues, Honorable Leader of the Opposition, Honorable Members of the House, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I thank the Opposition Whips, Honorable Salote Randonro and Honorable Prem Singh for accepting my short notice, also Honorable Ratu Inoke Kumbabola for giving up his space to allow me to present my ministerial statement. Honorable Deputy Speaker, my statement today will revolve around the National Red Plus program, the impact it will have on our natural resources, as well as on the welfare of our people. My ministry considers this as important in order to enlighten the House on the development of the Red Plus mechanism and its implication and significant contribution in achieving our national and international commitments. Honorable Deputy Speaker, Red Plus is a mitigation mechanism that was developed under the United Nations Convention on Climate Change to reduce greenhouse gas emission that is causing global warming and creating climate change which threatens human existence. Red Plus stands for reducing emission from deforestation and forest degradation, while the plus sign includes other potential activities including forest conservation, improved forest management, and carbon stock enhancement through reforestation and afforestation activities. Honorable Deputy Speaker, the biggest carbon emitters globally is from the use of fossil fuel for transport, energy, and industrial developments. This is understandable, as most developed and developing economies wholly rely on fossil fuel for their energy need. The next largest emitter stems from deforestation and forest degradation, which is happening at a much faster rate than the regrowth of the forest, especially in developing countries that heavily depend on the use of natural resources for their livelihoods. It must be noted, Honorable Deputy Speaker, that the Red Plus framework not only addresses carbon emission, but creates other benefits such as reducing sedimentation that pollute rivers and reefs, killing fishes and seafood, plus damaging coral reefs. Honorable Deputy Speaker, the UNFCCC found that combating deforestation and forest degradation at the global level cost far less over the next decades in comparison to allowing the damage to occur and trying to deal with it. The Convention also acknowledges the significant role of developed countries in creating this climate change problem, and so designed the Red Plus mechanism to encourage developed countries to compensate developing countries for performance-based efforts to reduce carbon emission through their forest interventions and activities. Honorable Deputy Speaker, Fiji's Red Plus program started in 2009 under a multi-stakeholder workshop that developed also the Red Plus policy that was endorsed by Cabinet in 2011, as well as the establishment of the National Red Plus Steering Committee. The Red Plus Steering Committee is a high-level committee that meets every quarter with membership from 24 different agencies comprising government ministries, civil society, academia, donors, private sector, and landowners. Honorable Deputy Speaker, representatives of these agencies commit a significant amount of time to guide and advise Red Plus implementation in Fiji. Working groups are established to meet for development of products needed for Red Plus, such as guidelines to implement the principles of free, prior, and informed consent in Red Plus activities, or providing input and conduct reviews for consultancies and products. Honorable Deputy Speaker, the initial support by government and the financial and technical support through the SPC GIZ Coping with Climate Change in the Pacific Island Region program has been the pivoting role for the National Red Plus program. Fiji was fortunate to receive in 2015 US $3.8 million from the Forest Carbon Partnership Facility, which is administered by World Bank, to fund Fiji's REDD+ readiness phase. Readiness in the REDD+ context, Deputy Speaker, is the term used for the planning, information gathering, and capacity development, which will enable Fiji to implement forest-based emission reduction activities that are verifiable and can be monitored and reported globally. During this readiness phase, Deputy Speaker, Fiji has established a pilot site in Emalu, Robuta, to learn these processes involved in gathering data for reporting such as carbon assessment, reforestation or degraded grassland, forest conservation, and others. This information from the pilot site will help us in building the strategy for a national REDD+ program. My ministry has started paying lease rental for Emalu with a first payout of $115,000 to TLTB for conservation lease. From next year, my ministry will be paying an annuity of $34,000 to the TLTB for the lease of just over 6,000 hectares of land in Emalu for the project pilot study area. Honorable Deputy Speaker, the REDD+ is all about effectively addressing the drivers of deforestation and forest degradation throughout the country with incentive programs and activities that bring change from detrimental land use practices to sustainable land use. And the success of these activities has to be measured and reported to international level, which require a sophisticated national forest monitoring system. Compensation funds are calculated by comparing the changes from the status quo as determined from the forest reference level. Honorable Deputy Speaker, in the current readiness phase, National REDD+ program is developing the following. The program has engaged USP to undertake the strategic environment and social assessment on the potential risks in the implementation of the REDD+ program and how to mitigate these risks and how to monitor them. Two other core outputs will be the development of the safeguard information system and the development of the environment and social management framework. The University of Hamburg in Germany has been tasked to design Fiji Forest Reference Level and the National Forest Monitoring System, which will be used for the monitoring, reporting, and verification of the national carbon and forest changes globally. Currently, the Estes office is waiting the contract for the in-depth analysis on the drivers of deforestation and forest degradation and to identify the response option, which will determine the activities and incentives for REDD+ implementation. The program is also working on recruiting a consultant firm to develop a feedback and grievance redress mechanism. And lastly, we will hire a firm to recommend strengthening measures for Fiji's legal framework on carbon rights, as well as design a benefit sharing mechanism. A platform for civil society organization has been established under the REDD+ framework, whose members are highly interested and motivated. Interesting, the CSO platform has a wide range of representation and can equally be used to voice their issues in various other forums, such as the upcoming Ocean Conference in June, as well as during the COP23 in Bonn, as mandated under the conventions. Honorable Deputy Speaker, all these consultancies are required to include national capacity building, as well as specific consultation process to strengthen the development of the local institution. On the benefit sharing mechanism, as was raised in one of the supplementary questions on Tuesday, Honorable Deputy Speaker, my ministry, under the REDD+ program, will be engaging a consultancy firm to analyze the best platform that Fiji will be adopting by looking at the existing platforms that are being used locally. There is, however, no magic formula device to determine who will get the benefits, as this still have to be determined legally and thoroughly consulted before it is implemented in the future. Honorable Deputy Speaker, the National REDD+ program is also working towards its intended emission reduction program after being admitted in the Carbon Fund pipeline of the Forest Carbon Partnership Facility in 2014. And this emission reduction program will kick in from 2020 to 2024. Fiji has been very fortunate to have this opportunity to be able to receive carbon incentives after proving to the international communities that national programs implemented under the REDD+ program contributed in either the reduction of the emission from forest conservation and reforestation or from improved forest management activities. Fiji has pledged to accumulate 3.9 million of carbon dioxide equivalent saved through its National Forest Emission Reduction Program. Finally, Deputy Speaker, this REDD+ program, I must say, is fitting in well with the other local and global development agendas, such as the National Climate Change Policy, National Green Growth Framework, and the Sustainable Development Agenda. It is cross-cutting in nature, as it has to address land use issues as well as competing sectoral policies if it has to be successful. It will also address the potential environmental risks and socio-economic issues and offers benefits beyond carbon at the local level, national level, and even beyond. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. I now call on the Leader of Opposition, or designate.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Honourable Acting Prime Minister and members of this August House, I stand with the concurrence of the Honourable Opposition Leader to speak on behalf of the Opposition. From the outset, I'd like to thank the Minister for Forests for this very informative, very elaborate explanation as to what is REDD+, the definition, and the 24 agencies that look after or that have been sitting and discussing issues on REDD+, and what should be done. And I must say we thank the government for that. But again, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the crux of the question that I raised, that we on this side of the House raised a couple of days ago, was there any formula as to how, what is going to be derived from all this to be shared amongst the resource owners? Honourable Minister for Lands alluded to earlier on, before lunch, that 4% of all the land in Fiji is owned by the state. I'd like to add to that 90% of all the land in Fiji are owned by indigenous Fijians. That's a known fact. The concern here, Mr. Speaker, sir, Deputy Speaker, sir, is when it comes to things of this nature, development and all that, the owners, the resource owners, are kind of pushed back to the back burners, whilst we try and come up with a decision and policies to see how best we can utilize our resources to ensure that we meet up with what was pledged by our Honourable Prime Minister to the world regarding COP23 and the benchmark it has set. And I stand to be corrected by the champion of our COP23, the Minister for Agriculture, as to the percentage that should be set aside to ensure that we comply with what we are trying to ask for regarding COP23 and the climatic change. But again, sir, the point that I'm trying to drive at is, now that we have that, now we have areas like Imalu, in Rombuta, this huge amount of money, upfront payment of 115, and another's a annual payment of so many thousand again every year for just 6,000 hectares. What about the rest of the forest cover? I'm talking about the one in Rawa, in Runolevu, the one in Dongotuki, my island in Tabiuni, forest cover, Buddha. It's not a standalone thing, Mr. Deputy Speaker. You have to consider all these forests. And how do we share the proceeds that come out of this? Back in Runolevu, Mr. Deputy Speaker, for information, if I may quote the saying that goes there now is, "Sabi wimbera na labunirangi." Mr. Deputy Speaker, this is the very thing that is being interpreted by all these groups that are going around to the villages, promoting, advocating for REDD Plus and all this, and the carbon revenues that are going to be derived out of all the savings that we are going to be undertaking, or we get out of it. But again, if we are not careful, it's just like another sky in the pie. I mean, pie in the sky, where it's just like a dream. And we don't know when the landowners or the resource owners are going to be seeing the reality of this. Are they just going to be getting some lease rentals because we are conserving certain areas to take up as forest areas? What about the returns from other sources like carbon trade? That has not been answered by my honorable colleague on the other side of the house. We need to know that. Now we know that certain companies or certain NGOs from abroad have been tasked or been undertaken to carry this out. So again, it's just like a dream in the sky here. We really don't know when are we going to be getting something out of this carbon trade. We've been notified that in 2015, 3.8 million has been directed to Fiji. Only yesterday we heard from the acting Prime Minister that they're trying to register FDP, be given accreditation, so that payment of money could be directed towards them.
Thank you.
Before I take my seat,
Thank you, Honorable
I'd just
Member.
like to thank the Minister once again for his reply and hope that something better could come out of all this.
Thank you. And I call upon the leader of NFP or his designate.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Minister for his update. It definitely appears that Fiji is forging ahead with the REDD Plus mechanisms, and as alluded to by the honourable colleague from this side, especially for carbon trading. Deputy Speaker, we are all for very robust environmental protection, particularly for mitigation, which are all necessary to cap global temperatures at 1.5 degrees or less, as the Alliance of Small Island State Partners have called for. On REDD Plus, while the project in Imalu, as the Minister quite rightly alluded to, is noteworthy and makes a lot of sense, I think the worry or the caution that continues to be there is that carbon trading can actually happen in a vacuum, because there are already many global examples or incidents of carbon trading scams that have halted some of the developed countries' initiatives in many countries, and especially has put doubt on the whole idea of emission trading schemes. So my caution would be that we should pay careful attention to that and ensure that these projects actually adhere to best practices. It may also interest the Minister that citizens of developed countries, and the example that I can point out is New Zealand, are actually now having national debates. I mean, there's quite a robust debate on whether it is actually to their benefit to bear the burden of paying other countries on emissions carbon reduction schemes. So I think there is also a cautionary note there that we need to look at why these debates are taking place in some of those countries. And the argument is when it actually may appear to be cheaper to reform how to do things in other ways, which may be better for the environment and our economy. So we may want to pay very careful attention to those trends as well, so that we don't really put too many hopes on or really, should I say, to put all the eggs in one basket, which is REDD+ and carbon trading basket. I think it's important to look at what's happening. I know as COP23 chair, we need to demonstrate that as a country we are committed to doing these things, and that we have everything in control and our agenda is pretty clear. But we must not lose sight of some of these trends and some of these issues that have come before us. Mr. Deputy Speaker, we note the Minister's update on the initiative to engage a consultancy firm on sharing mechanisms to analyze the best platform for Fiji, and Honourable colleague from this side talked about that. And I want to echo the same sentiments. I think we must not lose sight of the landowners, whether they are Itoke landowners, whether they are freehold landowners. I think they need to be included in any serious discussion of these projects and how it's going to be implemented. Because ultimately, I think majority of the land that will go into these activities would be Itoke land, and naturally Itoke landowners should have a very clear understanding before they consent to the use of the land for these mechanisms, that they actually get a return which is reasonable, and that they are treated as not only people who give land as lease, but also as shareholders and developers. And I think that, Honourable Deputy Speaker, will make some of these programs sustainable in the medium to long term. And that is what we need to carefully look at, so that these schemes and these mechanisms for carbon trading actually bear fruit and is inclusive of everyone who's interested in the programs. Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker.